Hey guys, Yankee here, and today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Conception, episodes 9 and 10. Episode 9 is the yaoi bait episode. It is just, oh, Itsuki, we need to find a third star maiden. Maybe it's a man. And that's basically the whole episode, is trying to get him to do the love ritual with a male. Um, uh, the Conception 2, I haven't finished Conception 1, but they really like to just play with stuff like this. Like in Conception 2, there's like a whole subplot where they're trying to do the classmating with the main character and another male. Um, so this episode isn't a surprise if you know the game, um, but it's a weird one. Um, so the first half of the episode is just Mana poking him, saying, "Hey, maybe it's a man. It could be a man, you know." And him constantly bumping into Seiya, almost like resulting in a scene with um Seiya is almost on top of Itsuki, and he storms off, of course. And then after that, Itsuki is just like, no, 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 it can't be a man. That wouldn't make any sense. And we get like this whole scene where man is like, well, if it's not that, then it has to be forbidden in some other way. Why else would it happen now? And we just get like a weird, like, man has been doing this a lot. She did it in episode 5 or 6. Maybe it was episode 4, actually. I don't remember. The one where Eri and what episode was Eri with? Yuzuha. So that would have been episode 3, where she's just going through like a bunch of delusions in her head. It's like, well, it has to be forbidden in some way. If it's not a man that's the 13th maiden, maybe it's your sister or your mother or this. And it's just a bunch of silly scenarios that she's playing out. Um, and then after that, which is just like again, just Menace Delusions. We do that a lot in this show where we got to pad out the run. Like, we have a lot to cover, but we have to pad it out with some of Mana's nonsense. I like Mana, and I think that scene is fun enough, but sometimes it feels like they do it too much. Um, so after the whole, like, oh, it has to be a forbidden relationship in some way, we get another Seiya scene, which is where he ends up almost straddling Itsuki, and like Itsuki runs off. Um, but there's like a brief moment where Seiya is talking to him, where he talks about like, oh, Itsuki, it must be lonely, right? You came from another world. You're here on your own. You don't have anybody here. And then Seiya basically saying like, I'm lonely too, you know, blah blah blah. And it was actually uh, good. Like, I actually liked Seiya in that moment, which I didn't really care about him before. Um, so that makes me interested to see what's up with him in the game. Like, I will give the show this. Like, they do just enough where it's like, well, I want to know what is going on. Like, the girls' stories get rushed really quick. So I'm left going, well, I wonder how that is in the game. Um, so it does that at least. It at least gets that done. Um, and then after that, say a scene, we get a scene with Itsuki and Mana on a bridge, I believe, where Mana is sort of explaining what she is. She isn't just a cutesy mascot character that because every game needs one. She is actually an impurity that was like a magician was trying to make impurities friendly, so they didn't have to do this whole going into the dungeon and fighting all the time. And he apparently succeeded with Mana, but died before he could go further than that. And so Mana was just an impurity wandering around outside the dungeon, and was basically going to get killed until another visitor from Sora stepped in and protected her, and then she's been serving the world ever since. Um, and we learned that the visitor that ended up saving her was Shangri-La, the king. Which, again, and they did the thing again where it's like, if you want more information, check the website. But I'm actually interested in that. Like, okay, Shangri-La was from Sora, and now he ended up being the king somehow. Like, that's a story I'm interested in, right? Um, so that's interesting, but again, it's just we don't have time to cover that, so we're just going to drop that little hint, and then move on. And so after this, we end up Itsuki deciding, like, you know what, maybe it is a man. I'm going to give it a try. So we get the start of a love ritual with Nar and Seiya, which doesn't go any further and is interrupted by Mana, who somehow got them into like onto the beach. This part this doesn't make any sense. Alright, so they go to the bed where all the love rituals have been held, and they're about to start, and then the walls just collapse, and they're just in the middle of nowhere with all the girls watching. So anyway, this whole thing about the 13th Star Maiden being a male was just Mana basic, like, I forget how exactly they said it, but basically trying to level up Itsuki, right? Something about being open-minded, like, is better for humans or something like that, and then saying that once they find the 13th Maiden, you're basically starting fresh somehow. I don't really get how that makes sense, but anyway, this was all just a weird thing Mana was doing to mess with Itsuki and try and level him up. Everybody was in on it. Nar and Seiya were both in on it. Even though for a while it's been hinted that Seiya has feelings for Itsuki, and that is basically reaffirmed here, where Nar says, like, yes, I was just pretending to help with this plan, and Seiya's like, me too, but I meant everything I said. So there you go. There's your yaoi bait episode. It was okay. It went on a bit too long. This should have been half an episode. It shouldn't have been the whole thing. The information about Shangri-La was more interesting than basically anything else going on in this episode. And Shangri-La is barely in this show. He's appeared like 3 times. But I'm more interested in hearing about him than I am the rest of this episode. So episode 10 now is... Alright, we've got all that out of the way. Now it's time to find the 13th Star Maiden. Who could it be? We don't know. So Itsuki and Mana are on a quest to find them. And in the beginning we get this really funny scene where Itsuki is pondering, like, well, maybe it's Mana. Mana might be the 13th Star Maiden, and Mana's off in the shadows just listening. And then he... I forget exactly how he got there, but, like, his whole reason for not thinking it could be her or not wanting to do the love ritual with Mana was because, like, well, Mana's too fat. Not because she's a raccoon, not because she's a foot tall, it's because she's too fat. And Mana was upset by that, and I just thought that was a silly, funny little gag. So, we see Alfie training the Star Children. After that, who could the 13th Star Maiden be? It has to be a woman close to him that isn't one of the other 12. Yeah, everybody knows that it's Alfie. Later on in the episode, Mana even makes a joke saying, like, yeah, everybody knew. I even knew. Like, did you not watch the opening? She's in the opening now, which is something I brought up in my last video where Alfie got added to the opening. So yeah, we go meet up with Alfie, and we're seeing how the training with the Star Children is going. It's going well. There's a scene where... I forget exactly what happened. But it was, like, during the training something happened, and then Alfie was about to give out instructions, but instead of, like, before Alfie could give the instructions to the Star Children, some of the older Star Children speak up and basically start giving instructions. So we see sort of how her training has actually helped the Star Children grow, and how they're, like, giving orders and stuff, and they know how, like, tactics and things like that. So we see that, and then we go into the dungeon to complete the 12th labyrinth, because we got the 13th to deal with now, but we haven't even finished the 12th. And we get an actual little fight here in the dungeon. What was the enemy? Tentatoros, in the Sagittarius dungeon. And we get a little fight there. We get, again, more references to actual gameplay, like... outside the dungeon, they're talking about their gameplay, and we're saying, Itsuki's saying, like, okay, A team do this, B team do this, C team do this, which is exactly how it's actually broken up into the game. You get to make, like, a few different teams of Star Children, and you can move them around independently. Like, there's a bit of a map in the Conception games, but not really. You don't get to move around much. You can only move to where the enemies are, and then pick which side of the enemy you want to attack. So their front, their back, their left, or their right. And so they're going over game plans, like Team A will do this, Team B will do this, Team C will do this. And that was really cool. We got like a brief little fight inside it, which was nice. We didn't get a lot of action. Most of what happened in the dungeon was a Star Children stumbles, Itsuki saves it from getting attacked, another Star Child heals it. And then we beat it, and we close off the little screw in the dungeon, and then nothing really happens. And then after that, it's all about finding the 13th Star Maiden. We see Alfie knows that she's the 13th Star Maiden, and instead of just telling Itsuki, she's trying to do little charms so that he'll figure it out himself. So there's one where it's like, she takes a piece of her hair, ties it in a bow, and then like tapes it to Itsuki's back. And she says something like, all right, if nobody sees it for 3 days, and that means he'll know, or something. And then Mana immediately sees it, picks it off, and then calls it trash and throws it on the ground. Then her second attempt at like a little charm is she wrote Itsuki's name on an eraser or something like that. It's like, well, if I can finish this eraser without anybody else touching it, then he'll know. And she just starts using the eraser, and then what is her name? The delivery girl. I should have it here. Tora shows up with a package, and before the eraser could be finished, Tora picks it up and uses it. So we get to do all these charms, and eventually she just says, screw that, I'm going to where Itsuki and Mana are. They're looking for the Star Maiden. They just have signs, and they're hollering about it. She's going to go, and she's going to just tell them. But Sei is there, and he's surrounded by girls, and Alfie's voice just doesn't reach Itsuki and Mana. And so we play that out for a while. That's like, the stuff in the dungeon is probably like 4 or 5 minutes. It's not very long. And then about half of the remaining episode is Alfie trying to let them know that she's the 13th Star Maiden. And then they finally figure it out, and Alfie just gives them a videotape, sort of talking about, like, to show them what they need to do for, like, the date they're setting up or whatever. And it's basically just, like, some Japanese romance, about, like, a woman with all these men chasing after her, it seemed like. There was an interesting style shift, though, for that scene, where it looked like an older anime, which was really neat. But basically, Alfie wants a trendy romance, so that's what they're going to give to her. And there's this really goofy scene where Itsuki and Alfie are in the back of this car, and, like, Mana is their chauffeur, and she has, like, a little suit on and sunglasses, and it's really silly. But Itsuki and Alfie go on a date. They ate at, like, a restaurant, and then they went back to her home where she stays. And we learn a little bit about her. We learn that, what did we learn about her? She likes idols, right? Like, not just modern Japanese idols, but, like, old ones. One thing I remember from the game, and I don't know if it's going to get brought up after the show. I don't think it will, because Alfie, we did the love ritual with Alfie already. We learn a bit about her. Itsuki gives her a dress. She likes idols. She has a book where she's been taking, making strategies and stuff for the Star Children and for the dungeon very seriously. And then we're done. Love ritual, it should be over. But, like, in the game, we learn a bit more about her, which I guess makes sense. They don't want to tell you everything about her. She was a new character for the game. But in the game, I'm pretty sure she herself was a Star Child who, I don't remember what the heck was wrong with her, but ended up growing into an adult, where I think Star Children are always Star Children. I don't know how that works. I don't remember. And, like, her father was a visitor, and her mother was a Star Maiden, and she was a Star Child, and we don't really touch on that. So I'm interested to see if we'll go back to that in a later episode, but I don't know why we would. It seems like we're done with Alfie now. But that's it for that episode. Pretty good. The episode 9, the joke got drug out a little bit too long, so it wasn't as entertaining to me. Episode 10 was also kind of like that, where Alfie's trying to get Itsuki to notice her kept failing. It felt like it dragged on a bit too long. It feels like these last two episodes really could have just been one, where half of it's Mana trying to trick Itsuki into doing the love ritual with a man, and the second half is, okay, we got to figure out who the actual 13th Star Maiden is now. Again, a problem with this show is they're trying to cram a lot into not a lot of episodes. And so episodes like this, while they're fun, it does feel like it sort of gets in the way. But they were both enjoyable enough. Yeah. Uh, Good episodes, even though 9 definitely wasn't my favorite. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.